Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to intensify airstrikes on Tehran in the coming days, saying that the military has now mobilised its full strength. His comments come after Iran targeted Israel with a barrage of rockets and missiles. Medical staff say 9 people were killed and 28 wounded when a synagogue was hit in the town of Beit Shemesh, west of Jerusalem, bringing the number of dead in Israel to 11. DW's Tania Krämer is in Beit Shemesh and told us about the situation there.
Yeah, as you said, we are right here in Beit Shemesh. We had to move a bit away from the impact site because also the connections there are not very good, and also we are not supposed to give the locations away. But, you know, we've been talking to people there, also to rescue service members. One of them was the first on the scene, and he told us, you know, what a difficult scene that was when he arrived there. So this is one of the deadliest attacks so far, an impact directly by a ballistic missile. People there told me that people were actually on the way to protect themselves, on the way to a public shelter when this missile apparently hit. And the devastation around in this area is really great. And you see how much power these missiles have if they get through the defense. What we've seen so far is that, you know, most or at least many of those missiles from Iran have been intercepted. But, you know, this is what you see when those missiles get actually through this defense shield. And people are really quite devastated, you know, talking to them, and all the houses around it, they're also damaged. I mean, people can't live in them anymore. But, you know, this is the price to pay right now for them.
Now, as we have reported, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has threatened to intensify strikes on Tehran. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Our forces are now striking at the heart of Tehran with intense power, and this will only escalate in the days ahead. We are engaged in a campaign in which the Israel Defense Forces are deploying their full strength as never before to ensure our existence and our future.
And we have DW's Middle East analyst Shani Rozanes joining me in the studio. Shani, good to see you. We heard the Israeli Prime Minister there. What could intensification of strikes look like? Do we know what perhaps the next level of targets might be?
Well, we've seen Israel today operating in Tehran, in the capital. They were not, you know, yesterday they were focusing mostly on getting the launchers and getting the missile stockpiles. Many of them are in the western part of Iran, just for technical reasons. It shortens the range between Israel and Iran. We're seeing them getting more into Tehran. Today they were attempting and claiming to have succeeded to bomb the military headquarters inside the capital. You know, Israel and the Americans say they have a very long list of targets. We need to know that, you know, they're saying also that they're having very good progress, much better than they expected. But we also need to keep in mind that they don't really know how much of success do they have at real time all the time. I mean, there's a lot of what's happening on the ground now that is constantly changing. There are assumptions based on very meticulous intelligence that we know that Israel and the U.S. have managed together. But it's always a bit harder to assess exactly the level of success. But they keep on doing that. And it seems like that, as we were already hearing yesterday, both Israel and the U.S. have a very clear laid out plan for the first 72 hours of this attack. It's yet to see what goes beyond that.
We started this chat by listening to the Israeli Prime Minister. To what extent do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is the one pulling the strings here, convincing Trump that he needs regime change as much as he does, perhaps selling him that he can win a place in history?
Well, you know, we need to be very careful here because Trump will never admit being, convinced or, or pushed into action by anybody else but himself. But I think we need to really give Netanyahu the credit for having really managed to crack Trump's personality, to manage to push his right buttons and to understand how he can sell this to America and to the American president as their own goal and as their own needs, because there is no imminent threat from the Iranian side on Trump. It's true that if you were listening to Trump yesterday, he was listing a whole sheet of crimes that the Iranians have committed against the Americans, but in international terror in the last 47 years since the revolution. That is true. But the immediate threat right now to America, that's a very thin one. However, Netanyahu managed to realize that Trump is eager for success. He's eager for credit. And they have all both together noticed how weak is the Iranian regime. The idea of maybe missing out on this opportunity. And, you know, Trump not being able to meet the idea of Trump being able to be the one to say, I have finally toppled the Iranian regimes. And he can definitely say, I have brought to the death of Khamenei, the supreme leader who has been seen, you know, as a dictator and as an oppressor, tyrant for his own people. That he has. And Netanyahu very, very wisely managed to see that sentiment and work into it. And that's what we're seeing, this unprecedented success that both leaders for now are thriving on. But I can also tell you in Israel, there are some concerned that this very tight collaboration might backfire against Israel in case this operation goes awry.
How long do we think Iran can sustain this resistance, given that they don't seem to be able to defend against what the US and Israel are shooting at them first?
Well, that's the great question. This is what will determine how long this will go and how far will it, you know, escalate. The Iranians are playing for time. The longer it takes, the more pressure Trump is under, the more pressure Israel is under. But at the same time, we also know that Israel and the U.S. have been very efficient. They are talking about having tackled at least a third of the, you know, a very big part of the launchers and of the stockpile of the Iranians. So it's not quite sure. They might try to pace and try to shoot, you know, in a slower pace in the next days. They might try to diversify their goals in the sense that they have not used all they have in their arsenal in the sense of escalation. If we see the Iranians starting to target oil fields and energy infrastructure, that means they're going all in. But we're seeing them being very cautious with this. And another thing we need to notice that is interesting, Iranian proxies and Iranian allies, they're quite isolated. We see very little, if anything, happening other than what Iran itself is initiating and launching. Even the Houthis, who have said they're going to start, attacking in the Red Sea, have shown very limited success so far. So this is, you know, we also need to think of the economical aspects of all of it. And we know the Iranian regime was very weak at the get-go. It's not quite sure how long they can try and sustain, but they will definitely try to play for time.
DW's Middle East analyst Shani Rozanes, thanks.
You're welcome.